So I'm just having a little bit more look at this guy. He's a spiritualist and he's analysing A.J. Miller. So he's talking about A.J. Miller believing that he's Jesus, and he says that, you know, everyone wants to be Jesus, but no one ever
decided to become the gardener of Julius Caesar, or someone is the person who burns the dung at the local trash pile outside of Jerusalem.
Well, I just went to go and see my sister's baby, and when I saw the poo, I was like, yeah, when I was a cave woman, I also had a kid. This kid didn't wear nappies, hence would have pooed all over the place. So I probably did become the local poo scooper, because I would have had to clean up after the baby.
And it doesn't really matter whether I believe in it or not. It's that person's experience. And I would suggest that what you would say is the pineal gland, or is one of the conspirituality guys is talking about, I think, temporal lobe epilepsy or something, that causes people to have religious experiences, that just those impacts to the brain makes it really easy to connect with. Just like silence and solitude, you'll start hearing voices. If you know the Desert Fathers, they're out there, they're having all these, what we would say, crazy experiences, but it wasn't debilitating to them.
Okay, when it comes to that, I'm not too sure what to say. You know, I do hear voices, and I don't think it's just a hallucination or an imagination. You know, it is something inside my head that is showing me visions and guiding me in a certain direction. It has knowledge of things that I don't know. It knows what I'm going to say and would lead me to click on something that would see something that would relate to what I've just said. So it's almost like it knows what I say, it knows what I'm going to do, and it can time travel, and, you know, it's a real thing. It's not a hallucination. I believe it is my spirit. What it is, I don't know, but it's not epilepsy of the brain. I know that. It's a real living thing. I mean, I know my higher self, I see my higher self as actually like an entity or a soul or a person. My spirit, though, I don't know, because sometimes it's very similar to me and sometimes it's not. So I still really haven't quite figured out what the spirit is, but I don't think that you can say that every religious experience is due to some sort of brain hemorrhage or epilepsy or something triggered in the brain. I think it's more memory that's triggered, and maybe the spirit, my spirit, is guiding them in something to change their mind on something. But it's complicated, because I think there's lots of different versions of what people would say they've experienced, and I think a lot of it is just imagination and people making things up, people on drugs, people lying or wanting attention, you know.
What I think is AJ was spending a lot of time, and it's what he told me, by himself. In fact, he said if at one point, if he would have died, it would have been weeks before someone found his body, because he was just completely isolated. So if I do that, I will start to induce these spiritual experiences.
There is definitely truth to that. You know, people around you often don't live in the same sort of spiritual world that you're living in. If you're having lots of religious experiences and you start being in contact with people, you know, they like to put you down. They like to tell you that what you believe can't be the truth. They like to tell you that, oh, you're just one person. You know, there's millions of people out there. People like to say, you're not special, you're not important, you know, nothing you say is real. You're just lying and to yourself, and you're believing things that are not true. You know, there's a psychologist that I see too, just in the same way that Jesus saw you. I have a brain neurologist he studied at, and I knew him before I found out that I was Christ, but I think he would be an interesting person to talk to if you wanted to know about me. But he just has no ability to understand or connect or believe, and, you know, he would say that what I'm going through is just, you know, imagination, that I'm just one of many people, and my life's not terrible. I'm not suffering. I'm not going through anything special. My life is just normal. I'm just a normal person. I'm just an ordinary, boring, normal person. Well, you're not boring. He'll definitely say that I'm not boring. He likes me as a person, but he can never get past the fact that I'm anything more than just an interesting person. And it's just like, but aren't I smart? Would I seem like the type of person to lie? Would I seem like the type of person to make things up? Would I seem like the type of person to big myself up? Am I full of ego? And he would say no to all this. And then so I'm like, well, why wouldn't won't you believe me when I say that I'm God and I'm inspiring things through time and that celebrities and thousands of people know about me? You know, why aren't you believing this? And it's like, well, it's only your truth. And I'm just like, well, how can this be my truth if it's not anyone else's truth? I mean, what I'm saying links to other people. So if it's the truth, then other people should also think this way. But, you know, I'd love to analyze him and find out what is stopping him from believing me or wanting to believe me or wanting to look up what I'm saying. And then he'll just be like, yes, we can talk over it. We'll go and have drinks together. Come over. And just like, look, you're refusing to believe that I'm Christ, and I don't want to have drinks with someone like that. You're just going to end up insulting me and telling me that I can't possibly be as special as I think I am. I have not seen my sister in a long time, and I met her yesterday, and I do not want to see her ever again because she made me feel like me making these videos was actually hurting her, that she might have the child that she's just had taken off her because my videos are so irrelevant, so pointless, not being watched by anyone. The only people that are watching it are social services who are going to take her child away from me, and they're going to do it because of what I'm saying. You know, she's got this whole put down of me and beating me up psychologically by telling me that what I believe, the world that I see, the world that I know, the power that I have, who I am as a person, you know, this can't be real, this can't be the truth, and therefore the only way that you can stay in the strongness of your belief is to stay away from people that tell you that you're wrong. So I feel like there is some truth to that. You know, if AJ Miller has kept himself into isolation recently, I think that is a good thing, because he's going to keep his belief up and he's not going to be put down by the rest of society who are telling him that he's just one person in billions and saying, you know, you can't be that can't be the truth, because he's got an opinion and he's got an opinion, and these people are all equally as valid as you. And there's millions of people all over the world calling themselves Jesus. So, you know, why would it be you over all of them? Although in AJ Miller's case it is kind of different, because he's talking about the spiritual realm as if it's like a physical spiritual place that ghosts go after they die, and I think he's got a lot of things wrong. So yes, I'm not exactly criticizing this guy because I know that AJ Miller is wrong and he is creating some sort of fiction in his head. But it was nice to use this experience so that people can understand what I've had to face for 11 years.
Do you think, and this is interesting, I got to probe just to keep the dialogue, to keep moving forward with AJ. I want to focus on him mainly in terms of what your position as someone who saw his teachings early on and knows his person and the people who are around him following. Do you think when he was on air on my show and I asked him where in the rings of hell, for example, Joseph Smith is, Joseph Smith being the leader of the Mormon Church, and he turns his head for a second and, oh, hold on, I don't know. And then he comes right back. Oh, he's in the third ring. What do you think about that? Like, for me, as a skeptic, someone who's like, you know,
up, or just pull that out of his ass. But, right.
That's what I think he did, honestly. Yeah. But then again,
that's what you think he did, but that's not what he did. He's actually channeling what he's saying. And if you watch him, he can talk for hours, and you saw him talk for hours. But he can just go on any topic, and it's actually, if you listen to him, it's very logical. He insists on things, and I think one of the comments on your video was that internally, it's very coherent.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, when it comes to all these different heavens, I don't believe that he's saying the truth. I think he is just making things up. He's got some sort of voice in his head that's sort of telling them the answers, but he's copying me. This AJ Miller guy is a sort of copycat of me, and spiritually he is copying me. Now, if you ask me questions about, like, what was your past life like, you know, technically I'd probably start saying, you know, oh, I don't know, like I was saying with my sister's new partner. You know, he asked me that question, and I said I didn't know. But just as I was saying that, an image of this sort of plumpish lady in front of this Victorian fireplace came through, and I could see the kitchen. It was kind of like a Tudor Victorian kitchen, and then I started getting other visions of having like loads of children in this house, and her kind of being like very good at multitasking, and yes, being the cook of this, you know, large group of people, but also helping out with the childcare. I think she really liked children, and, you know, I was trying to get a sense of who Marco was, and I got this vision, and so I felt like AJ Miller's kind of copying me in a way. He's spiritually copying me, only me, he's not actually connecting with the truth. I think he's connecting with a sort of counterfeit truth. And a counterfeit truth is to believe that you've got all these spirits talking to you in your head and that you know what they're saying. Hence, they can say things like, what heaven are you in? Third heaven? And they can tell you. And he knows, though, that he can say all of this and it can't be proven or disproven. Only someone who comes along and says, actually, these are all fictional characters and I'm the one who's inspired the Bible. Here's the proof that I've inspired the Bible. You know, some people I believe in the past are real, but most of the biblical characters are all fictional. And because most of the characters seem to link to me and, you know, they're like fictional versions or fictional stories about me, you know, I can prove that some of the things that he's saying is bullshit. But he didn't think that I could disprove him. But the thing is, though, he is the counterfeit Jesus, and he's here to kind of pick up all the Christians who believe that the Bible is the truth, all the people that are going to not like the things that I say because they don't want to believe that the Bible isn't the truth. You know, the Bible is a horrible book full of disgusting things, and it worships a disgusting God. Now, if I say that this is all just a fictional book and fictional characters, and you believe that, then good on you. You're a bit smart, you know. But I feel like AJ, it isn't meant for the people that would say that. He's meant for the people that would believe the Bible, and therefore he's coming up with this sort of counterfeit version, which is to back up the Bible and say this is all true. But there's also, you know, a heavenly spiritual realm, and people have to make their decisions on which version of Jesus or Christ do they want, me or him. And this is where he's got his information from, let's just say that. I mean, I think it's all lies and bullshit, but the Spirit has inspired him to lie.
There was also some mistakes he made, by the way.
There were some mistakes, and you know that's he's also human and doesn't claim to be anything other than human. That Jesus was nothing but human, which is for me a big improvement over everything else already. He mistook Esau for Ishmael, I believe. That was one.
So I guess it's oh yeah, I make mistakes all the time too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that. When someone's claiming to be Jesus and have lived for 2,000 years, do you think he's lived for 2,000 years in some sense, and he's the same guy from the first century? I mean, that's my question.
First of all, I don't believe in that, and I don't believe he's reincarnated, especially after. Really, the eye opener for me was when I realized what his personality type was, and because he would never tell me. I asked him if he knew his Myers-Briggs type, and then if you know, INFJs actually make great cult leaders.
I have no idea what you're talking about. If you're talking about star signs and how the certain star signs become types of people, I really don't believe it. I believe in reincarnation. So if you were born in January in one life and March, April, June, July in another life, you know, I don't see how that's going to change your personality in any way. I think that is a load of rubbish, and I don't know, to think that there is a type based on RF, I don't know what you're talking about, but I've never heard of it, basically.
And I posted something from Rick Ross, the 10 signs of a charismatic group leader. And I went through and highlighted them, yellow and red and green, denoting whether AJ was actually touching on those or not. And there were some that were in the red, yes, that he fell into that charismatic group leader status. Some of them was not at all, because as far as asking for money, that wasn't a thing. He financed himself, and you know, he asked for donations now, but at the time it wasn't the case. And my title to the post was how we are going to keep from falling into this trap of becoming a cult.
If you think about it realistically, though, the fact that AJ would make a good cult leader, wouldn't that just be reason why God would choose someone like that to be a Jesus character? You know, Jesus is a preacher, is someone who has to be able to talk. Now, God is not going to choose a sort of Jesus character to come and preach if that personality type is someone of a kind of mouse-like personality or someone with autism. You know, God's not going to choose some autistic person who doesn't like fame, who doesn't want attention, who doesn't want all that. You know, if God was real and God wanted to create a Jesus figure, God would go for the charismatic cult-like type personality anyway. So yeah, to think that he can't be Jesus because he has all the attributes to be a leader figure, although to be honest, I don't think he's got a particularly strong leader figure vibe. I think he's got more of an average person, I can blend in, I'm the common person kind of vibe. But that's also a good thing, because that is how his people would want Jesus to be. because they want Jesus to represent them, the average person, really.
I think for consenting adults, who cares if he's Jesus or not? It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Is he being abusive? And that's what began to happen over time. And I've
Give
actually
us some examples of that, if you don't mind.
telling people, and it starts to tap into false memory syndrome, telling them that things happen to them and blaming their parents. That's abusive. He broke up people's relationships. You're not in this whole soulmate thing. Well, you guys aren't soulmates.
That's that part where he talks about half spirits being created, all that. Yeah.
You do realize that's all very Platonic and Neoplatonic. It's not nothing new. So
See, this is kind of abusive, I guess. I mean, technically, it's only abusive if the people that hear this stuff, believe them and edit their life in a negative way because of him. I mean, that's not really good. But A.J. Miller of the past, kind of like in the Bible, there are some teachings that seem to say, put God first and your family last. Basically, it's almost telling them to put God and no one else above them. So that teaching in itself preaches a similar kind of thing to what AJ is preaching, and not to seek forgiveness from people around, but only seek forgiveness from God. He came with some sort of semi-bad teachings, but it's not like hugely bad. But yeah, anyway. When it comes to relationships, I would rather stay out of relationships. Okay, I'm sure there are a couple of relationships that might end up going in a certain direction because of the names that they represent, and like Kanye West not staying with his family. I feel like that might be something that the spiritual God has influenced. But a lot of people want to do what's best for the timeline, and if they can show something in the relationship that failed and guide or prove something through it, or if it's just not working out, then AJ, though, being a sort of counterfeit version of me, has probably done just a different type of splitting up, which I guess involves him actually splitting people up rather than just spiritually through a God who actually knows people's past and future and stuff, who can see the bigger picture. I'd say it's not great what he's done, but at the same time, if you don't think someone is a soulmate, then I don't see why you can't just say your opinion. I don't think my sister and her new partner are soulmates. But then again, I don't actually believe in soulmates, so I would say that no one really has a soulmate.
Some of this stuff can make you very easily manipulated. And the emotional stuff. You put people in a very vulnerable emotional place, and you can manipulate them, especially if you're saying that you're this authority in Jesus. And most of them have come from that Judeo-Christian background, and some of the stuff I've seen and heard is just ridiculous. As I said, if you were to take away all that Jesus shtick from that interview, you would actually, and certainly the PhD you had with him would certainly agree with that assessment of the New Testament and what happened with that Jesus story or Jesus myth. You would completely agree with that. If you look at some of the stuff from a psychological perspective, you would think that's nothing new. In fact, I went back and I read everybody that if I find an author or teacher, I go read everything they read, or I go look at the bibliography and I go read all that. Well, I went and read everything that AJ read. He actually gave me his book list, and I just read it. And it was basically inner child work. There's value there. It's unfortunate to me that he's such, I guess, didn't think that A.J. Miller was significant enough to just come and share this stuff with people himself, and it would have been totally useful. But he had to add that Jesus spiel, and then it just becomes about that versus here's a way to address some of your emotional issues. Here's what's really happening. In fact, I still refer to him as a teacher in Australia, because I won't say his name because I don't want people getting sucked into him. But he has a unique view of the law of attraction, and I still think it's the one unique thing about him. He says it's not what you're thinking, it's what you're feeling. And again, it's all stuff you can test out for yourself. You can try it, and I think you can get results it's again just unfortunate that he has to throw in the Jesus part with it. And he could have just been A.J. Miller.
I don't agree with that. I think all the stuff that he's preaching about emotions doesn't really make sense to me. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone has emotions. Everyone can tap into emotions. So I don't see why he's making such a big deal out of it. I mean, you just need to watch a good film and you'll be filled with emotions. So why is he teaching about it? I don't know. I think the interesting thing about him is that he's Jesus. I feel like you agree with a lot of his teachings, but you just don't agree with the bit that I agree with, whereas I don't really agree with a lot of his teachings.
If I get a big hit of serotonin from doing LSD, I have this may have this experience, but what I'm suggesting is I can have that experience without that big hit of serotonin.
Right. So, quick question: you can have that experience without without the LSD in your system. Yeah. So,
or anything else that's actually jacking up my serotonin.
Could you naturally jack your serotonin up through meditation or something like that?
If you were meditating. But I know people that can, including my ex, she could just completely just sit there and tune in to that spiritual realm.
That's interesting, because I was talking about serotonin last week, saying how I was getting serotonin actually from making this video. This is strange because this is the first time that I've mentioned this word. I know my sister's mentioned it a couple of times to me over the last few years, but I've kind of just ignored it. But I felt a need to sort of say this at the beginning when I made this video, or maybe it was a different one, but I'm pretty sure it was this one last week. And yeah, I don't know, I feel like the spirit is actually part of this serotonin. You know, I feel like there is some sort of chemical in the brain that makes me feel special when I make these videos, hence why I make these videos, hence why I get satisfaction and want to make these videos. And I feel like that is driving me. I feel like the spirit can control chemicals in the brain, and you know, I don't like the idea of people taking sort of mood swing drugs. Why? Because I feel like it makes the brain lazy. If you don't know how to control your own chemicals in your own brain, like and not be able to control your moods, I feel like it's a sign that you need to do something. You need to learn how to produce serotonin, and you need to learn how to feel special. And I feel you do that not by just taking drugs and just getting lazy, but rather by, you know, actually doing something that the spirit is leading you to do. And I think AJ is getting some serotonin from whatever he's doing, and that's encouraging him to do it more. And likewise, this is encouraging me to do it more, even though I've ended up isolated in a house feeling like I hate the world because no one gives a shit, and you know, it's destroyed my life, but it's not actually destroyed me as a person because I get serotonin from what I'm doing. So I feel like this word, I don't even know what it really means or anything. I didn't know, I couldn't pronounce it properly last week, but yeah, I feel like there's something to it, and the fact that you've even mentioned it in this means that I feel like there's some truth to it.
You don't think there's a mental health scenario there? There might be something, because I know schizophrenics that hear voices all the time and see
things. I don't really believe in all that. The DSM,
schizophrenia?
Well, the DSM is a travesty. As a psychiatrist, William Glasser said, it's the most harmful book ever written. And he was a psychiatrist. I'm more of the R.D. Laing school of thought.
Okay.
And pathologizing people's experiences is usually not helpful. I've had plenty of clients that have been classified as schizophrenic, but when I explain to them what's happening, they learn to manage that, and they see it not as debilitating because they're able to put all the, as I said, that play-by-play out of their head, which is debilitating. I've experienced it myself, and they're able to tap into higher level consciousness and tap into their own spiritual guidance. And then they've got a gift. And I know people that are gifted like that.
Do they take any medications? I mean, we're getting off track, but I just kind of, this is a great conversation.
In fact, I usually help them get off medications. Those medications, there is no such thing as chemical imbalance, just so you know. That's never been proven.
When it comes to chemical imbalance, I don't really know the truth, but I do have a strong memory of me saying that I don't believe in chemical imbalance and you needing to take drugs to stabilize yourself. I remember saying that I don't believe in it, but to be honest, I was just saying something, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, but I feel like you should learn to control your own chemicals and produce your own chemicals, and you do that by tapping into the spirit to find out what your true purpose or what you should do, and what is right for you, and what is going to bring you satisfaction. I think if you're doing something that makes you feel satisfied, I feel like there could be a spiritual link between that and you doing what the spirit is wanting you to do, hence allowing you to make this serotonin. You know, this is something that could be true. I don't know. But then again, there is a lot of people that seem to be spiritually misguided, and yeah, is that best for them, or is that just best for the spirit in total? I don't know.
And then, of course, there are children involved. And so there's a sad situation where one of the kids believes that he is Jesus.
Yeah, Tristan does. Well, Tristan really wants to be somebody. So that's his, he wants to be a star. He wants to be famous. So the fact that my dad is Jesus is an obvious in with that. And her other son, who I'm not going to name, it's much more standoffish, skeptical, at least the last time I checked.
I kind of like that in a way, actually, because I feel like he might be glad when he finds out the truth that actually his dad is Jesus. I'm not too sure what role he would play, but supportive is good, yeah. It's nice to think that he has some support. I have had none.
As she said, malignant narcissist. Well, that's true. We've got plenty of malignant narcissists. Donald Trump is a prime example. If you want to see a malignant narcissist, there you go. And you can see exactly how they behave.
Do you realize that narcissism is actually just a lack of caring or compassion towards someone else? And you heartlessly saying that, that's an example of narcissism, that's just the type of people that they're like. And on this AJ Miller, yeah,
As she said, malignant narcissist.
It's a shame that his kids, you have spent the last 2 hours criticizing him, picking up all his faults, insulting him. You are displaying narcissism in the way that you're talking. You are talking about his kids as if, one of them is wrongly deceived and the other one is, I feel sorry for him. But by saying this, you are actually displaying narcissistic traits because you're not wanting to say the other one's name. So you're showing a little bit of understanding to how he might feel, but you're not really feeling understanding towards how AJ might be feeling, to have people just talk about him behind his back and talk about how, it's a psychotic episode, or maybe he's just being misled, or, he's just got a big ego, just so much pride, these are cult leaders, they're all like this. What you're doing, you've done a 3-hour conversation just insulting and picking on a guy who's probably getting insulted and being picked on by a lot of people, and then to bring up his kids and talk about his wife. And this is characteristics of a narcissist, so to just accuse him of being a narcissist whilst being a narcissist is just like, yeah, whatever.
Well, that's typical. And it's very common. Even psychopathy is common with CEOs. In fact, there's I think it's the Psychopath Test or something, was a book that came out several years ago, and it claimed that all these CEOs are actually very psychopathic with the way they engage other people and have disregard for other people.
Strange empathies.
You don't have a circuit in your brain for empathy, so everybody else is someone to use for my own ends.
Or oftentimes it's like their ego or selfishness is so high up for whatever reason, the narcissism has them only concerned about their own being. So as long as you don't harm me, and that's right. Kind of the path that it seems like.
Most people are a narcissist in some type of way. It's just different degrees. Some experience it on a very less degree, some experience on a high degree. Some are just picky and choosy about who they want to be narcissistic towards. When it comes to these big CEOs, I don't actually know them, so I wouldn't be wanting to talk about them behind their back.
For him, the main thing, which is obviously not true, is not whether about his identity, but it's about people's relationship with God and how they see God. And if he would have just dropped the identity, he could then point people to that in a possibly healthy way. But he's gotten stuck on that identity, which is sad.
Yeah, it is sad. It is.
Sorry, but you're wrong. No one can lead people to God if they don't know who God is as a person. God is a human on earth right now. If you don't know that, you can't lead people to God. His identity, though, okay, it will lead people away from me because I'm not God the Father, but it can lead them to heaven, because he's clearly very good at getting people like spiritualists to believe in the spiritual realm. And I don't know, you didn't really say that you definitely believe in the different levels, but you said that you kind of agree with his teaching. So it's like you agree with everything, just not the Jesus part. But yeah, when I expose that the Jesus part is actually the truth, you'll probably just be inclined to believe him even more. And that's not really a wise thing.
I would take what Dean is saying in his advice. If you're someone who is a spiritualist, you know, running into the whole I'm identifying as the chief head honcho, I am the guy, the ego, you end up in those drinking Kool-Aid scenarios, or possibly David Koresh scenarios, or some strange ego builds up to a point where it becomes dangerous. And there's been claims that what AJ has done is caused divorces. Oh, my video went out. My battery died. But he's caused divorces, and he's caused quite a bit of issues in families and stuff. So would you like to comment on that before we go?
I don't care. If someone telling them that they're not soulmates is going to split them up, they probably were going to split up anyway. Unless you actually know the people and know the situation, you can't really say if it was something that was bound to happen, or if it actually was AJ Miller saying something that got them to split up.